Hi, welcome to the Destin Business Forum, brought to you by the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Amie Perry, and today I have the Amies. Amie Williamson, you are the business consultant for Landrum Human Resources, and Amie Remington, you are general counsel.
Yes.
Now I'm just going to refer to everybody as Amie. Everybody's Amie, A-M-I-E, A-M-Y.
That'll work.
Whatever.
Perfect.
All right.
We'll answer anything.
So I won't want to say you're my favorite guest ever, but you probably are. Enough about the Amies. Tell me about Landrum.
Landrum is a 45-year-old family-owned and operated human resources company established right here on the Emerald Coast.
Really? I had no idea that it had been around that long.
Yep, we've got 3 offices right here in the Panhandle, one in Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, and Panama City.
Okay. Tell people specifically what you do.
We help businesses with the challenges that they face by being an employer. So we do that in 2 ways. We have a staffing company which helps businesses of all sizes with recruiting, hiring, training, as well as helping businesses with resources like drug screens and background checks. So everything to bring an employee on board. And then we have what's called a PEO, which is a professional employer organization. Once upon a time, it might have been known as employee leasing. And that's essentially HR outsourcing.
Okay.
So we help small businesses with the business of having employees, which would be payroll, workers' comp, taxes, compliance, human resources, benefits administration.
So when you say human resources, if I have employees and let's say I don't want to do any of that anymore, I don't want to write paychecks, don't really want to manage that much.
Yes.
Does Landrum do all of that?
We do. We are your back office HR department down the hall.
So if someone has an issue and they're like, so-and-so, I don't know, offended me in some way. Mm-hmm. Instead of coming to me, I mean, I'm sure they would come to somebody higher up, a management person in the office. I guess you have to have at least one. And then I could pick up the phone and say, Amie, what do I do?
Yes.
Or can you come talk to them and you do, if there's an investigation that has to happen or something like that?
Correct.
You do that?
Yes, we say we're as involved or as behind the scenes uninvolved as you choose. So if you just want to call us for advice, we're happy to consult with you, let you know what the best course of action would be. Okay. Or we could actually come on site and help counsel the employee or any of your managers that are managing others. Okay.
And is that, we talked about employee leasing, and you said it's called something different now. Do the businesses actually have the employees as W-2 employees, or are they contracting with Landrum?
Well, it's a co-employment relationship now. So they're your employees and they're our employees. So we share the responsibility. Technically on the W-2, they're our employees. Okay. But by joining Landrum, you get huge access to our big pool of employees, which means great benefits, discounts on benefits, access to 19 different certified HR managers, and on and on.
Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. How can you save employers money on insurances? We just re-up our insurance about this time every year, and it's okay. Is it going to be a 10% increase or a 35% increase? I'm imagining that an organization like Landrum could probably save money just because your pool's so big.
Absolutely. We're not going to guarantee we can save every employer money, but certainly we have our own master health plan. So a small business such as yours, when you go shopping for a small group plan versus joining our master health plan, you're going to have access to way probably richer benefits at a lower cost, typically.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get the other Amie involved in this conversation. All right, there's a question that I jotted down here. National Labor Relations Board, or NLRB. What is that for those who don't know?
Okay, so the board is a quasi-judicial board that's created by the government. It's a 5-member board, and it has 5 members at all times, and there's always 3 members of the current party. So currently there's 3 Democrats and 2 members of the other party. So there's 2 Republicans, and they have jurisdiction over almost every single employer in the United States, and a lot of employers don't have any idea that they're subject to that jurisdiction. And in years past, anytime you talked about the National Labor Relations Board or the Act, people thought about unions. But that is a small slice of their pie. Today, when we talk about the NLRB, the hot topic is social media. because in about 2012, the NLRB started issuing very proactive decisions on what employers could do in response to employees' actions on social media. So if an employee took some kind of action the employer didn't like, what rights did the employer have to respond?
Okay, so if, let's say, and tell me if this is too specific, but if an employee has a confidentiality agreement, or just by the nature of the job, it's what you find out is it's confidential. And let's say they put something on Facebook like, "Hey, did you hear? I don't know, so and so just won the lottery, or so and so's getting divorced, or whatever." They put that on their Facebook page. Let's say. Can the employer do something about that?
Well, okay, so it entirely depends on the content.
Okay.
If the content of the post is about terms and conditions of employment, and it's protected concerted activity, which means it's in concert with other people, it probably is legally protected and the employer cannot take any action.
Okay.
One of the biggest keys is determining before an employer responds is determining, is it protected? Because if it's about terms and conditions of employment, so if Amie and I talk on Facebook about wages, and we're talking about wages collectively in our organization, it's probably protected. But if I'm talking,
even though you say, "Hey, what we pay you and what we pay you is confidential. We just don't want you talking
well,
about it."
Well, it can't be confidential under the Act.
It can't be confidential.
That's black and white law.
Say, I would like for it to be confidential, but it can't
even
be.
do that.
Wow.
In your handbook, if you have a clause in there that says no discussion of wages, you are automatically in violation of the Act, and get it out of there. That's if you have no other takeaways from today, it's look at your handbook.
Okay.
And if it says that, get it out of there, because wages are clearly a term and condition of employment.
Sure,
and
that's
arguably the most important term and condition of employment.
So everybody, they can be talking and say, "Oh, well, I heard so and so is making $4 an hour." I don't know. And so-and-so's making $55 an hour, that's all fine.
If it could be talked about by the water cooler, that's now social media. The distinction is that if you and I are talking by the water cooler, or at lunch, it's you and I talking, but if we do it on Facebook and we've got 500 friends each, now we're having this conversation in front of 1,000 people.
Sure.
And so if the purpose of the conversation is to have concert, in other words, in concert with other people, it could be protected. Now, the one distinction where employers almost always have a right to take an immediate action is if there's a threat of violence.
Okay.
Even that they have to look at and make sure it's actually a threat.
Okay.
But if there's a threat of violence, employers almost always have a right to take an immediate action. But before any employer takes any response to social media, they need to evaluate, is this something that's going to die of its own volition, or are they adding fuel to the fire by responding? And talk to your HR manager or your employment lawyer and just make sure that you're absolutely safe in this action.
Does an employer have a right to see someone's Facebook page?
Okay, so I think that's a really bad idea, whether it's a right or not. If the employee gives you access, you have a right.
Okay.
But it's a really bad idea because as an employer, why do you want to know?
Okay.
The Facebook page also says things that you don't want to know, like sex, color, race, religion, national origin, and all kinds of other protected statuses that as an employer, you really just don't need to know. It's not job related.
Okay, we have completely gone over our time. I was so interested in that. Thank you, Amie. Thank you, Amie. Come back and we'll talk about this some more, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We'll be back.